Hi, Ernst. I'm very glad to see you on Faveda's channel. Dear audience, I would like to introduce you a great astrologer, philosopher, Ernst Wilhelm. Ernst has his own astrological channel. A link on it you can find in description to this video. And there on this channel, more than 100 videos on different astrological topics with brilliant explanation. Also, our guest recorded a lot of astrological courses, and you can find them on his site, Vedic Astrology net. Yes, it's
Um,
this site.
Vedic, Vedic-astrology.net.
Yeah.
If I remember right, yeah. And it's actually the videos are at astrologyvideos.com. Astrology-videos.com.
Okay. And Ernst, he is a developer of color software that I'm using since 2013, I think. And it's the best astrological software with friendly design and a lot of astrological instruments. Thank you for this, Ernst. And today I would like to discuss with you the planets in debilitation, how we should view them, what are they telling to us? Please share your understanding on this theme with Russian auditory.
Okay, so this is a very big topic because there's not only debilitation that's happening. So with some techniques, all we care about is debilitation or not. With other techniques, it's just one small factor amongst many factors. And so the problem people have when they approach debilitated planets or exalted planets is they go to these extremes. But see, usually there's other factors involved with the planet that sort of make it not go to the extreme you expect. Okay, so debilitation is one little factor amongst a big calculation of what's happening, and it needs to not be overused. So there are some simple things we can do with it. One of them is it's very important to know the deep exaltation points and the deep debilitation points. So the moon, for instance, is deep debilitation at 3 Scorpio and deep exaltation at 3 Taurus. Okay, so those points show what's called the Uchabala, or the high strength of a planet. The closer the planet is to that point, the higher that strength is going to be. So for instance, a planet at 29 Aries is going to be stronger in Uchabala than a planet at 15 degrees Taurus.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and so in some ways, that planet's actually going to be better. Now, in other ways, it's not going to be as good. So again, it's important to learn the proper techniques. Okay, so, but one nice, really easy thing we can do with these debilitation points is if a planet is traveling towards the exaltation point, then the dasha of that planet is called Rohini, which means a growing dasha. So when you start something in that dasha, it grows. It gets better over time. It grows into more and more, okay? Then the dasha of a planet that's moving towards its deep debilitation point is called Avarohini, which means not growing. So you get into something then, you think, oh, this is going to go so well, and it just doesn't really grow. And usually by the end of the dasha, it's gone, okay? So that's like a very simple technique that's based simply on exact debilitation and exaltation points, okay? And that will give an accurate result without needing to look at other factors, okay? But generally speaking, the exaltation and debilitation, you can't really talk about debilitation without exaltation, right? Because they're like this, okay? So the debilitation point will create an avashta, a condition of the planet that's alarmed, okay? And what that means is, it means the circumstances are an alarming circumstance, an emergency circumstance, okay? But that alone doesn't mean you're going to be miserable there. You can be in alarming circumstances and feel wonderful, you know, okay? And so we have to understand that a planet in debilitation is alarmed. The circumstances are alarming. And especially if you're running the Yantar Dasha of that planet, you're going to go, wow, I really have to hustle. It's really stressful right now. Okay. This is the stressful time. And that's what the debilitated planet will show. Okay. That's one of the avashtas. Then also, when a planet is, debilitated, it's going to be sleeping.
Yeah.
Okay. And when a sleeping planet, the final thing that happens when life manifests, okay, it manifests along the 5 elements. So first, the ether element creates space. Then the air element moves us around that space into the right place and the right time. Then the fire element makes us have a energy to go after it, a hunger or desire or a drive to go after it. And then the water element is the element that coheses, that bonds things together, that sticks things together.
Mm-hmm.
And this water element always happens in our consciousness. Okay. And then finally, the earth element is the exact thing itself with all the details of that thing. Okay. But when a planet's in debilitation, then and it's in the sleeping avashta, what we call it, the Sushupti avashta, sleeping, then that means the consciousness of that planet is not in a place, the consciousness is not able to bond and pull it together. Because in our minds, we have to have a devotion to it to make it happen. We have to understand it to make it happen. Or there has to be some innate familiarity with it, a feeling that pulls it into our space, you know? And when the planet's sleeping, it's not able to do that. So on the 4th level dashas is when the sleeping planet can make things go wrong, okay?
Yeah.
So if a planet's debilitated in its 4th level, it can cause problems. And its 3rd level, it'll cause problems. But you'll find on the other levels, it won't be the determining factor. So you could be running the Antardasha of a debilitated planet, and that can actually not be too bad. Okay. All right. But of course, as astrologers, we focus on those debilitated Antardashas, think it's going to be so bad. So there's the most important avashta is called the Lajita avashtas, Lajitadi avashtas. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now those avashtas are based on exaltation and Mula Trikona, and then they're based on conjunctions to Saturn, Sun, and Jupiter, and then they're based on the influence of friends and enemies, mm-hmm. friendly planets and enemy planets, okay? They're not based on debilitation at all. There is no Lajitadi avashta for debilitation, okay? If it's exalted, it's proud, and it does something to feel good about, okay? Mm-hmm. If it's debilitated, it doesn't matter for this avashta. But if a planet's debilitated, we don't care. What matters for this avashta is the planet in a friend sign or an enemy sign. Hmm. So Saturn in Aries is debilitated, but the important thing is for this avashta is that Saturn is in an enemy sign because Mars is a natural friend to Saturn. So when you're running the Antardasha, where the Lajitadi avashtas have the most weight, of Saturn in Aries, it sucks. You're miserable. Things are going wrong. You're not happy, okay? Yeah. But Mercury is a friend to Venus, and Venus is debilitated in the sign of Mercury. Yeah. So in the Antardasha of Venus debilitated, you're feeling happy because you're with a friend. You're feeling good about yourself, okay? Mars in Cancer is in a friend sign. Yeah. So sometimes you're going to predict, oh, this debilitated planet is in it's going to be a bad Antardasha. For Mars and Venus, no. If it is bad, there's something else making it bad, okay? Then some other Lajitadi avashta is involved. So if Mars is there with Saturn, Saturn's going to starve Mars. If Mars is in Cancer with Mercury, Mercury's starving Mars, and it won't be so nice. And so Mars in Cancer, no problem. Okay, in this context. So the point I'm making is we have to use the debilitation in the proper context and not just jump, oh my gosh, Okay. The other thing is, ultimately, what's important is that planets have an effect that furthers our life, right? Because we're either living healthily or we're living sick. And if we're healthy and we're productive, we're moving forward, the planet is doing its job. Okay. Now, there's three primary calculations that let us see how the planet's muscle is for that. Okay. So first, the planet has its passive muscle. Okay, which means this is just how much I have to work with. I have this much skill, this much talent, this much money I inherited, whatever. I have this much to work with. It just kind of is there. Okay. That is based on the Neechabhanga. So if a planet is closer to its deep exaltation, it has all these freely available energy to work with. If it's closer to its deep debilitation, it has very little to work with. Okay. Now, that's only one factor, though. So when a planet's debilitated, it has very little to work with. It has very little free resources of energy to work with. Okay. And that's a big liability. But if you have little to work with, but you are confident and you can work with determination, great things can happen, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the Cheshtabala. Now, what Cheshtabala is, it's how close the planet is to Earth. The planet's either close to Earth or far away. Okay. When it's close to Earth, we use that planet with confidence, and we can do great things with that planet. When it's far from Earth, we're so nervous about using that planet, we just feel like it's going to fail before we use it. And we don't even want to use that planet unless we have to, okay? So one is the female principle, the Uchabala. The other one is the male principle, the Cheshtabala. So when a planet is retrograde, its Cheshtabala is the highest. Okay? When the planets Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn are retrograde and exactly opposite the sun, that's their highest Cheshtabala.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's like a planet being in deep exaltation. It's just as good. Okay. Then if a planet is conjunct the sun and not retrograde, that's its weakest Cheshtabala. Okay. That's like being in deep debilitation point. Okay. Then it has no Cheshtabala. Now Mercury and Venus have the highest Cheshtabala when they're retrograde conjunct the sun. Oh, okay. That's when they're closest to Earth, because then there's Earth, Mercury, Sun, all in a line. When Mercury's over here, it's not as close. When Mercury's over on this side of the sun, so Mercury, Sun, Earth, that's when it's no good at all.
The weakest position, yeah?
Weakest position, no Cheshtabala, okay? So retrograde planets have the highest Cheshtabala. That's like having a planet close to deep exaltation. So if a person doesn't have a lot of just resources, but they can have confidence and they work hard, they'll get somewhere, right? So we always have to balance the Uchabala with the Cheshtabala. We can't just say, oh, it's debilitated, it's going to be causing a problem, unless we're using the Jagrata Avastas, where a debilitated planet is sleeping, or we're using the Debilitation Avastas, in which case the debilitated planet is alarmed. But in all other things, we don't, except yoga. Sometimes the yoga will say the fifth lord is debilitated. Okay, you need that for the yoga. It's part of the formula. And that's the only time you should look at debilitation as a sole factor. Every other time you have to look more. Okay? Yeah. Or else you'll predict things to happen that wasn't as bad as I expected. How did they get married under a debilitated planet, you know? Okay, so we have to balance the Ucha and Cheshtabala in general. So if we want to see how good a person's life is, we have to look at that. Okay, they have 2 debilitated planets, but they have 4 planets with high Cheshtabala that are retrograde. That's a good chart. That chart is more powerful than you expect. Okay? And even more important than that, though, is the Digbala.
Yeah.
Okay. So Digbala is the planet is in a house where it has strength or in a house where it has no strength. So Jupiter and Mercury are strong on the first house cusp,
Yeah.
weak on the seventh house cusp, right? Saturn is strong on the seventh house cusp, weak in the first. Mercury and Venus are strong in the fourth house cusp, weak on the 10th house cusp. Mars and Sun strong on the 10th house cusp, weak on the fourth. Okay, so again, we have these two opposite points.
Yeah.
All three of these are based on opposite points, and the planet's somewhere between these opposite points. So if a planet is closer to its Digbala point, on that half of the horoscope, it has higher Digbala. And what Digbala helps a planet do is it helps a planet go back and forth between using Uchabala and Cheshtabala.
Mm-hmm.
So a real practical way to explain this is like Jupiter, okay?
Yeah.
And take an athlete who's, an athlete. He needs his Jupiter because Jupiter is the fuel, the energy.
Energy. Oh, okay.
It's the sugar and fat he's going to burn in the marathon, right?
Yeah.
And now his liver is going to store a certain amount of glycogen. Yeah. And that's free energy for his body. Mm-hmm. His body can take that energy and without any work, burn it and just run. That's his Uchabala. Okay? An athlete with a high Uchabala can store a lot more glycogen.
Yeah.
Okay? And he'll have so much glycogen, he can be more efficient during the longer part of the first half of the race. Okay? But eventually the glycogen runs out. And then his body has to shift into fat burning mode, which means the body needs to go over there, get those fat cells, break them down, turn them into usable energy. So it's not free energy anymore. And it's the Cheshtabala that lets us see if the body can do that. Okay? If they're efficient at that, they can still get energy reserves. But the most important thing is the body's ability to switch between those two. Yeah. Okay? Because there's times in the race where you have to burn the sugar because all of a sudden everyone starts racing up the hill. You can't use fat at that moment. You need glycogen at that moment. If you're running fats at that moment, you're going to knock it to the top of the hill. Okay? And then there's times where where your pace is such that you need to not use your glycogen, you need to just focus on burning on fat. So you have the glycogen, you need to switch back and forth at the right time. It's the Digbala of Jupiter that determines the body's efficiency in that. Otherwise, what can happen, it can run out of glycogen and the body says, okay, go burn fat. And the Digbala says, okay, maybe in 2 hours, I'll get around to it, but that's too late. In our lives, it's the same thing. So in our lives, we're using a planet and say we have Venus and say it has, we're using the resources of Venus. I have this nice, comfortable thing in my life. Okay. And I can just go to my wife and it's wonderful. Yeah. Okay. It's nice. Uchabala Jupiter, Venus, because I have exalted Venus, or you have all this nice wife who's always loving and kind to go to. But eventually, if I don't do anything loving and kind, she's not going to be that way, right?
Yeah, of course.
So the Cheshtabala is my ability to actively have a healthy relationship, okay, where I'm taking care and considerate of the partner. Mm-hmm. And I have to switch back and forth. I have to be able to signal, oh, wait a minute, there's something wrong here. I have to adjust and do more of this and more of this. If not, the relationship still fails. So every part of our life works like that. So the Digbala, you'll see people who get the most stuck in life to the point that they're so sick they can't even get jobs. They can't even go to work. The government's feeding them, Yeah. You'll find the most common denominator you're going to find is lots of planets with low Digbala. Mm. And so they're not able to go back and forth because you can never be always using your Cheshtabala because you'll get too tired and you have to stop. And it's like with money, you save some money, you put in the bank. And then you can live for 6 months on that money. But before the money runs out, you have to get a job and start making more money, right?
Yeah, of course.
But what if someone waits for the money to run out and 6 months later is looking for a job? It's too late. And the quality of their life is just, it's now stressful. So we have to look at those three factors together in most examinations of the chart.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's like the basics of it. So you have to understand more things than just, oh, it's debilitated, it's bad.
Yeah.
These are the basic things you have to understand. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And that's the beginning. Okay. Now, there's this thing in astrology that a lot of astrologers talk about called cancellation of debilitation.
Yeah. Neechabhanga Raja Yogas. Yeah.
Well, Neechabhanga. Okay.
Yeah.
Bhanga means to reverse it or destroy it.
Yeah.
Neecha is debilitation. So there's Neechabhanga, which is overcoming the debilitation. And there's Neechabhanga Raj Yogas.
Yeah.
And they're two different things. Okay. A Neechabhanga Raj Yoga is something where you start low in life because Nietzsche is low.
Yeah.
So you have something low in life. You're born and you're always hungry. There's never enough food on the table, right? And out of that low experience, you go, I'm going to be a billionaire.
Yeah.
And then you become a billionaire. That's what a Neechabhanga Raj Yoga does. I'm not going to live like this. This is too low. I'm going to rise out of this, okay?
Yeah.
Now, that's Neechabhanga Raj Yoga. Simply Neechabhanga, cancellation of debilitation, it means the planet's debilitated, but it's not going to give such bad effects as you expect. It's going to give more average effects, okay? So the first Neechabhanga, cancellation of debilitation, if the planet's retrograde.
Yeah.
Because as I explained, that's half the equation.
Veshtabala.
Chestabala. So if it's retrograde, its Chestabala is going to be high enough to compensate for that debilitation to some degree. And it'll be an average planet. It's not a yoga though. Okay.
Yeah.
The old books don't say so, but I also include if it has Digbala. If it has Digbala, cancels the debilitation.
I didn't hear about this cancellation.
No, you won't hear it. It's not in the old books.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Because by the same thing, you can make these three things all work together.
Oh.
And of the three things, Uchabala based on debilitation and exaltation, Chestabala based on how close it is to Earth and its relationship to the sun, and Digbala, where it's at in the chart, the most important is actually Digbala.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so if the planet, the debilitated planet's in its own Navamsha or exalted Navamsha, then that debilitated planet won't fall apart the way you expect it to. Because the Navamsha makes us feel a sense of purpose about something. So if we have a job that's really stressful, a debilitated job, but we feel we're supposed to be doing that job, we'll be able to stay there, right?
Yes.
But if we have a good job, then we feel it's not what we should be doing, we'll leave. Okay? So see, the determinative factor is, do we feel like this job fulfills my purpose, my Navamsha? Okay? And if we feel like it does, the planet being an owner exaltation Navamsha says, I feel right about this. And the planet, the Rashi says, it's really stressful and really shitty, but you stay because of Navamsha. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's why if a planet's exalted in the Navamsha or own sign, it doesn't cause the debilitated planet in the Rashi to fall apart, to lose it. Okay? Okay. If the debilitated planet is with an exalted planet or a planet in its own sign, things don't fall apart. Yeah. So basically that exalted or own planet is able to say there's enough good here that we will hold it together, okay, through this difficult time, all right? Now, whenever you have cancellation of debilitation, it's not a perfect situation. It's just, it allows you to deal with that debilitation, basically, okay? Now, if the Lord of the debilitated planet aspects the debilitated planet, it holds it together. Why? because we have a rule. If a planet aspects its own house, it supports that house and
Yes.
everything in it. So now this debilitated planet is getting supported by the Lord. How much is it getting supported by the Lord? Depends on the dignity of the Lord.
Yeah.
The better the dignity, the better that support is. Okay.
Mm.
And for that, I really like to use Rashi aspects, especially. Okay. Okay. If the debilitated planet's on an angle from the Lagna or the moon,
Yes.
it also has some strength to hold things together. That's my least favorite one. Okay. The reason being because, see, planets on angles, they just sort of get manifested. They just kind of have energy that keeps them going. But so it helps the debilitation from causing a complete loss, but it's usually not that nice. And my favorite place is when the planet's in the 10th from the Lagna. Because any planet in the 10th from the Lagna becomes very capable of manifesting. And that makes up for its debilitation more than on any other angle. Okay?
Yeah.
So those are the rules that the debilitated planet's there, but it's not all going to just fall apart. But it doesn't make it a perfect situation. You're not like, oh, I'm so lucky. It's like, wow, it didn't explode. I'm not living on the streets, but I don't like the house I'm living in. That's what it feels like, okay? All right. Now, Neechabhanga Raj yogas are a little different, okay? With the Neechabhanga Raj yoga, the person experiences a low state of being. And out of that, that motivates them to do more. And it's a beautiful yoga. The debilitated planet's always there. That debilitated planet will hurt them. When that debilitated planet comes, it'll cause them trouble in the context of everything else I talked about. But it's the motivation to live a better life. Okay? Okay.
So the man becomes stronger. This debilitated planet push him, yes, but
Yes.
Man makes feel him stronger about this planet, about this energy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When people have easy lives, they don't do anything.
Yeah.
And they have enough suffering, they do great things. And so this can help. So if the planet that rules the sign of the debilitated planet, so say Saturn's in Aries.
Yeah.
Mars rules Aries.
Yes.
If Mars is on an angle from the ascendant or the moon, it's a Neechabhanga Raj yoga.
Yeah.
Which means the dasha of Mars will give success. So say Jupiter's or say Saturn's in Aries, and they screw up with a weak body. They were sick all the time as a kid. They were scrawny and weak looking. Everyone laughed at them. Okay.
Yeah.
Then then we get the dasha of Mars, and that's when maybe they shine physically. Whatever they make up for, and maybe they're become a fitness coach and they start a fitness gym and they're really strong, and all the girls go, wow, where'd you get that body? And you show them your pictures of the kid and they don't believe it. So that's a very shallow example. So it's something like that, but it happens in the dasha of Mars. It does not happen in the dasha of Saturn. Okay. So the dasha of a planet in Neechabhanga Raj yoga can be difficult depending on all the other factors, okay? Okay, so the planet that rules the sign of the debilitated that the planet is in, the Neecha planet is in, is on an angle from Lagna or moon. Okay, that's one case. The other one, the planet that's exalted in that sign of the debilitated planet is on an angle from the Lagna or the moon. Yes. So say Mercury's in Pisces, and Venus, who's exalted there, is on an angle. So Venus dasha, they make up for all the liabilities of Mercury, and they make up for that and do something in a bigger way than normal. Okay. Okay. The other one is if the Lord of the sign in which the debilitated planet is exalted is on an angle from the Lagna or the moon. So say you have, Mars is in Cancer. It's exalted in Capricorn.
Yeah.
Saturn rules Capricorn, and it's on an angle from the Lagna or the moon.
Yeah.
And the dasha of Saturn will give the Neechabhanga Raj Yoga, will give the person success in their life. Okay. So, and the nice thing about these, you can use these in the Varga charts too. So like in the Trim Samsha, you look at and you go, oh, in this planet, the person is able to overcome their health problems caused by this debilitated planet in their Trim Samsha. Okay. All right, the last one on my list, make sure I don't miss any. Okay, very simple. It's when the Lord of the Exaltation sign and the Lord of the Debilitation sign are together, or they're on angles from each other. Okay. Yeah. By being together or on angles from each other, they're able to work together. Then the dashas of both those planets will be successful.
Okay. And can you give the example on the planets?
Of the last one. Okay.
Yeah, last one.
So say you've got Mars in Cancer, debilitated. Then you have the moon and Saturn conjunct. Because moon rules Mars's debilitation, Saturn rules Mars's exaltation, and they're conjunct.
Yeah.
Then the dasha of Saturn and moon are going to give success.
Great.
Now, or if Saturn and moon are on angles from each other, they'll give success. What's important to remember about Raj Yogas is success is not equal to wealth, and success is not equal to happiness. Raj Yogas do nothing for happiness. Okay, so if it's caused by a Moon-Saturn conjunction, Saturn Moon are going to give success, but Saturn Moon isn't going to be happy.
Yeah.
Okay? So these are, again, different things. That's why there's a lot of people who are successful and unhappy, right?
In depression, they are very moody.
Yeah. Okay. So those are the ways that we can work with debilitation. But I think that when we initially examine a chart and we see debilitated planets, the first thing to do is look at the Chestabala and the Digbala. And if you go to the Shad Bala in the software, you can actually look at those numbers. Uchabala, Chestabala, and Digbala, and see if the Uchabala or the Chestabala is high enough to make up. You can actually do it mathematically.
Yeah, great. And what happened when the debilitated planet is become Vargotama?
It's become Vargotama?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, what a lot of astrologers don't understand is Vargotama only applies to the Lagna and the moon. See, Vargotama means the best Varga.
Yeah.
The best, highest Varga, okay?
Yeah.
And it's something that people have taken to an extreme. It's commonly taken to an extreme. People are even using it in other Vargas. No, Vargotama applies to the Lagna and the moon. If your Lagna or moon's in Vargotama, your whole chart gets better.
Okay.
So all the good yogas are going to give a little more. All the bad yogas are going to give a little less, and you'll be able to manage the bad. It makes the chart better. So say you're going to get married, and you get your Muhurta, your time of marriage. And there's always some planets in the wrong place. You can't help that, right?
Yeah.
So if you can get a Vargotama moon or Vargotama Lagna, that's one of the main ways you can add something to the chart to overcome the problems.
Oh, great.
Okay. So it makes the chart stronger. But when it comes to planets, no, you can't do that. So if a planet's debilitated in the Rashi and the Vamsha, it's a really troubled planet. That planet is going to cause you more trouble than if it was just debilitated in one. It doesn't just get better all of a sudden. Okay. I'm in a stressful situation, and I don't feel like I'm supposed to be here anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, it's no good. I only use, and again, when I first studied Vedic astrology, yes, I thought everything could be in Vargatama and it mattered. But really, the Lagna and the moon, it really applies to those 2 points. Now, see, the moon, it will never be debilitated in both.
Yes.
You know, it'll never be debilitated in both. Because if we technically looked at the moon, it's really only debilitated in the first 3 degrees of Scorpio.
Yeah.
And so after that, it won't be debilitation there. So when it's in Scorpio Navamsha, it's not in Scorpio Rashi.
Yeah.
And when it's debilitated, it'll be either in Cancer Navamsha, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the moon has a lot of lucky factors to it. So I personally don't use Vargatama outside of looking at the Lagna moon anymore because I just didn't found it mattered. And then the big question is, does Vargatama make up for a doubly debilitated planet? And no, it doesn't. You can just watch it. If it's debilitating Rashi and Navamsha, it's just worse. There's a lot of important things in Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra where he gives mathematical calculations, where there's a lot of important insights can be gained. So there's like the Vimshopaka, and that's the 20-point strength where we take the dignities in different Vargas. So first we take the dignities in the Shad Vargas, the 6 Vargas, the 6 base Vargas, right? And we see how many points the planets get for each Varga. And then we go to the Sapta Varga, the Vimshopaka for the Sapta Vargas, the 7 Vargas, and all of a sudden they all get different points. They have different importance. So there's a lot to be understood from that. But there's a common factor in that the Rashi chart almost always carries the most weight. The Navamsha always carries a lot of weight and possibly the most. And then sometimes a Varga you wouldn't expect carries a lot more weight than it should. And the one you think it should carry a lot of weight doesn't. So for instance, in the Shad Vargas, we have all these planets carrying a certain amount of weight, okay? All these Vargas. And we add the Sapta Varga, and the Sapta Varga has to do with relationships because it adds the Saptamsha, which is about children and relationships. The planets in the Saptamsha only have a 5% influence. That's it. The Rashi chart is like 50%, and the Dwada Samsha is 40%.
Yeah.
The Rashi chart is you. The Dwada Samsha is your parental influence.
Yes.
And the person you're with, the Saptamsha, is 5%. Your parental influence is 40% or something. I don't know if those numbers, I might be remembering those numbers wrong. So, but it's really high. And the self factor is about 50%. So what that shows us is that how happy our relationships are is based on our parental influences and our own relationship with ourselves more than the person we're with. You know? So there's a lot of these things to study. So when you see these things, you can look at this and realize in different contexts, in different areas of life, a planet debilitated in the Navamsha is not as big of a deal as it is in another area of life.
Great. Thank you very much, Ernst, for this session.
Okay, well, I hope that it helps everyone use them more effectively and not get stuck making wrong predictions.
Yeah, great. I hope to see you again on my channel.
Sounds good.
Yeah, dear viewers, please press like button, and if you know English language well, visit Ernst YouTube channel to know more astrological secrets.
And I do have some of my YouTube channels people have translated to Russian.
Yes, yes.
And I have about 300 hours of my videos, maybe 400 hours of videos transcribed into Russian too, that I'm actually working on a Russian video site.
Great, great.
I just haven't finished it yet. It should be up later this year.
On this year, okay. And what about the new version of Kala software?
Oh, we're working on that as we speak, but it's just taking longer. Lots going on in life. But we are working on that. It will be done sometime this year.
As you told that it will be available on Macintosh computers also, yeah? Not only Windows, MacOS also.
Yeah, Kala will be ready for Mac soon. It's going to cost more, but people can upgrade their PC to the Mac version by paying the difference. And if they have a PC, they can use it on their PC too. So they can, if they have a PC or the wife has a PC and they have a Mac, they can use it both. They don't have to buy 2 copies.
Great.
So that'll be really great.
Yeah. So we are waiting for this release.
Okay, well, it should be done. It's almost done, but then there's finding all the bugs, and we'll see how that goes. I have someone in Nepal, a student in Nepal is working on that.
Great.
Yeah, it's really will be wonderful. Thank you. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Ernst. Thank you for this session.
My pleasure. Hey, namaste.